Hey there, welcome to the MeetPoint Podcast. I'm Ono Anayo Daniel, your host. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms. A special welcome to those that are listening to us for the first time. We are glad to have you on this podcast. We will be diving into inspiring conversation where faith meets career and business. Stay tuned with us, and you're welcome to the family. Today on the podcast, I'm excited at the same time thrilled to have Bunmi join us. She is an internationally certified talent management professional with extensive experience across several industries. She's a John Maxwell certified coach and has been recognized among Nigeria's top 100 career women and top 100 power women. With numerous certifications, recognitions, and awards, her name, Bunmi, is a truly inspiring leader in the HR space. So get ready to be inspired, get ready to be motivated, and get ready to, hear from experience what it means to, leaving all behind. So today we'll be looking at a very, very interesting topic. And what we want to talk about today is something that has been very, very focal or very, very the focus of most Nigerians in the past, say 5 years. It has always been there, but in the last 5 years, it has been in its all-time rise where everybody's talking about, Japa, everybody's talking about relocation. Everybody's looking out to, move abroad. And it has been in its all-time high the last 5 years in Nigeria. And why you would think probably the whole syndrome of Japa is dropping, but it looks like it's not dropping anytime soon. It looks like, it keeps on growing day by day. People keep on talking about it. But there is something that I want us to talk about today, especially for those that are still in between decisions, right? There are people that, sometimes when you speak with them, there is just that fear of uncertainty. There's just that fear of, leaving everything behind, taking a total new move into somewhere that you probably will be starting all over your life again, especially for those that are very much established, especially for those that probably have established themselves in career, established themselves in business. So it's something that they are in between decisions, and it's very, very important because over the years I've had discussion with so many people that when they come and they are talking about things like this, you see that this thing is something that they desire to do, but at the same time they are afraid to take that step. So while we understand that it can be wonderful, at the same time we also understand that there's risks to this thing. So this brings us to what we'll be discussing today, which we have titled it leaving it all behind, the risks and reward of Japa, the Japa we have been hearing. So we want to talk about it. We want to have the chat, especially the fact that we are speaking with someone that have had the experience. Back then, when you were in Nigeria, I already know that you had an established career. Like you are not in the space of your career where you could easily just, make that decision. You had an established career, things going fine for you in the space of career. You had family, everything that you probably would have desired as a Nigerian living in Nigeria, and you were up there already in your career, and taking that decision to say, I need to move, I need to relocate. I know that a lot must have gone between thinking about it or having the thought, making the decision, and even arriving to where you went to. So the whole discussion we'll be having today will be around that process, and most especially even the experience why you live where you are living. So welcome. We are so excited to have you on the call. Me for one, I'm super excited. I've been a silent follower for a very long time. I think about 3 to 4 years now. I first met you on Instagram and I loved your content. I kept on following, especially for the fact that you were so very, bold about your faith in Christ and just putting out there on your Instagram. And I love that. So I have always been a distant admirer. I loved how you went about your career and all that stuff. So I am humbled at the same time honored to, have you in this podcast session with us. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us at the MeetPoint Podcast. And let me let you know, you are the first guest we are having on the
Oh,
MeetPoint Podcast. So,
oh, wow. That's
yeah,
amazing. Wow.
yeah.
I am also very super honored to be here. Thank you so much
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you so much. Okay, I just want you to, first of all, before we go into the whole Japa discussion, let's talk about. Can you just give me like how did it come about? The first job you ever had. How did it come about? Is there any story behind it? Any exciting story?
Yes, I think so. So this will be the job I did after I finished serving because I wouldn't use the service one since all of us worked. So what happened? That job was, and I always tell everyone that we all start from humble beginnings. And my very first job was a job that I actually did before I went to serve. So I did the job before I went to serve, and after service, I came back to the job because I had been doing it before I went to serve. I served in Nasarawa State. So why did I start doing that job before I served? I graduated from University of Ibadan. That was in 2002, and then for whatever reason, there were some issues between my school and NYSC and the call-up list. Is it call-up letter list or what? I don't even remember anymore. So after about like a 3 months wait, okay, fine. I finished my project and I was happy to graduate and just be sleeping and waking up in my father's house, watching TV and everything. But then it now dawned on me after 3 months that this is not a life to live. I can't just be sleeping and waking up. It's not like I lacked anything. Like my dad was there providing whatever I needed, food. If I wanted to go out, I had an allowance, but I just knew I couldn't continue to just slide there. So I went to meet my father and I was like, please, is it that you don't have any friend that can give me a job? I am tired of sitting down in this house. And then my dad at that point was busy fattening me up because he hated the fact that I was so slim. I was really thin. So he hated it so much. So he was happy that I was just there eating and, getting around. You've gained weight. Very good. I beg, I want to go and work. So he now went to speak to his friend. His friend had 2 companies. His friend had a school around my area. And then he had a factory in Mushin where they do a few products, just on a small scale level there. So he now asked me which one I wanted. Did I want to work in the school, which was just a walking distance from my house, or did I want to work in the factory? But I studied microbiology, so I felt like, the factory would be a better thing for me to do because I would be able to work in the lab. And he told me that they had a lab. Only for me to get there and I saw that, oh my God, this was such a small company. It was nicely set and everything. But it was a mushy, there was nothing happening in the lab. The lab was dead. Like there was nothing. There was a lab there just for NAFDAC purposes. There was nothing to do. So when I sat there for 2 days, I was like, no, this is not life. I need to go to the production floor there. So I went to the production floor. I made friends with the production manager, a very wonderful woman called Mrs. Ogbere. She was like a big auntie to me, and so I used to stay there a lot. Sometimes I would even help with the production, because there was nothing happening in the lab now. So now the funny part of this story was that that place, it was like quite a bit of a RAS kind of setup. I don't know how to explain. And what the product they were making then was like powdery. So when you go in, you wear, this rubber sandals we used to wear in secondary school. So you have to wear that because the powder will spoil your normal shoes. So you wear that. That's when I resumed, I'll wear that and I will wear a lab coat. When I'm closing, I will have to go and rinse my leg at a tap outside with all the other factory workers and then change. So I was not married. So I had a couple of love interest or toasters or interested people. So some of them will come there to pick me up. So there was a particular one like, Bunmi, what are you doing in this place? This place is too horrible for you. Yeah.
It's spoiling your steez.
I'm like, no. I'm like, I can't be sitting down at home not working. And they were paying me whether 17,000 or something. So it was better than not having anything.
Not doing anything.
Aged. Yeah, so that's the interesting story of my first
story of it.
Not glamorous at all, but it was something I did it before I went to serve, and then after I served, the job was still waiting for me, so I resumed there, and from there I started building my career.
It's exactly. I love that. I think it is just inspiring to know that you on your own wanted to, put your hands on something. And that's what makes it beautiful. I think I had almost similar experience. Mine was when I was serving, because I served in Niger State. And
Okay.
why I was serving there, and I was done with taking few trainings in HR, I just felt like, okay, I needed to do something. And I reached out to a friend that had a startup then. His startup was still fully remote. He had no office there. And I just told him that, hey, bro, because I knew him as an undergraduate, I told him that, you know what, let me volunteer. Let me be your HR. Don't pay me.
Oh.
And he was surprised. He thought I was joking. And he said, if you know you're serious, send me an email. Then I will take it that you are serious. And I did the same day. And he replied the next day. And, I started working. And that was my first, working experience, so to say, after NYSC. Before NYSC, it was more around, classroom teacher, a few times that I had to, work in other places like hospitality, because I had like few months break from school and all those things.
Got you. In between jobs.
Exactly. So that was the experience for me. Excited to know. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's go into the discussion of today. So I would like to know where did the whole idea of Japa, like at what point did you know that, okay, I want to leave Nigeria? Like what happened? What was that idea, or where did it come from? I just want to know the story.
Okay, so it was just a combination of different things. First of all, I just spoke about graduating in 2002. In 2001, my mom relocated. So, I was still with my folks then. So she moved in 2001 because my family fell on hard financial times, and it became obvious that she needed to do something. So she had her own relocation story, right? She had also risen in her career. She was a director. She had a company car. She worked in an advertising company, but she lost that job because they did a redundancy exercise, but they paid her out. So she used every single savings that she had in her life after trying to do business for like 2 years, right? And that didn't work. So she just gathered her money and then did some kind of process and used that to move to the States. So it was something that I'd always seen. And when she left, I actually didn't see her for the next 15 years. So my mom was not at my wedding. She wasn't there when I had my first child. She wasn't there when I had my second child. But by the time I was having my third child, I went to have it in the States in her house with her. So because she was an undocumented immigrant for a very long time. For those 15 years, she was away. So that's why she couldn't come home. And we also couldn't go there because that was not the focus. So I think I'd always seen it. And then shortly after she left in 2001. I have two siblings. My younger brother left 2 years later in 2003. He went through the study route, also to the States. And our last one, my sister, she won the visa lottery in 2009. So it was just myself and my dad here, and they had that distant relationship that they had. They used to always send emails, then they would send me to the cyber cafe to go send an email. In fact, that's how I met my husband, because my husband was running a cyber cafe, but that's a different story. So I'd always had people around me that had relocated. Do you understand? And that was what I wanted to do. In fact, that was what my mom wanted me to do. And she wanted me to remain in the science career. Remember, I studied microbiology and I was working in the lab. I left that lab in Mushi and I moved to a fertility clinic where I was being trained as an embryologist. And so her plan was that I was going to come there and do a STEM career, right? Only for my husband to now come into the picture. And then I got married to him. He had absolutely no plans to relocate. So I didn't think about it anymore. But I think as the kids started growing older and as Nigeria started getting a little bit, a bit more unstable, I would say the first thoughts, it had always been in my mind. But in 2016, when I went to have my baby, my third child, because I was there for about 3 months, I was like, this is a very sane place now. Everywhere is sane. It's not like the way where the nightmare it is to go to the office, right? And everybody shouting and the market, like, the market and everything. No, I would like to live here. So I think that was when the seeds regerminated again in my heart. Remember, it was there, but then it became dormant because my husband didn't have the interest. So, but then again, my husband was not interested, and there's no way I can move on anything that my husband doesn't have an approval on. But I was always praying about it. I always wanted to do my master's. I had not done my master's. At this time, I had over 10 years work experience, or 12 years, but I had not done my master's.
Yeah.
So I was praying about, God helping me to do my master's, which I wanted to do abroad. I was just praying about different things. Then in 2019, my husband just came and said, Bunmi, this was how he said, Bunmi, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Nigeria has not taken its first step. I don't know what was happening in the government space then. That was the Buhari times.
Yeah.
Let's look into this relocation again, So, but even from that time that he said it, from when the seed germinates to you actually taking the steps and knowing where you want to go, what process, it's a very complex. It's very, very complex, and we even made a few mistakes, right? So even from when he told me in 2019, I didn't make any move until 2021. In 2021, I celebrated my 40th birthday, and I had this whole splash all around. I had a party, I had everything. Then I had moved to Flour Mills, and the Flour Mills job was like my dream job. It was, oh my God, it was so good. I loved my boss, my pay was good, everything, all the perks were good. Yeah. So that day, I think 2 weeks after my birthday, I was going to work. My office was in Apapa, and I was doing a hybrid schedule. So some days we worked 2 days on site or 3 days on site and then at home. And then in the traffic, I don't know about whether you know Apapa or trailers.
I do. I know the experience.
Daniel, so this was the defining moment. So there was all this background, but this was the defining moment.
Yeah.
I have been in traffic many times, but on this particular day, there was traffic, and I was driving I had a salon car, right? My car was literally sandwiched in between two trailers. There was one trailer this way, there was one big trailer that way, and my little car was in the, the lock jam traffic in Lagos.
Yeah.
And then my car was sandwiched in, and I was shouting on my driver, hey, Austin, move this way, move that way. It was like, madam, there's nowhere to go. And I was not like, no, this can't be the story of my life. That this cannot be a reality that I will be living every day. No, there's something wrong with this picture. This is not a normal picture. So that was the defining moment. So even though in 2019, my husband said, let's move, and I've started a few things. I think I did my wares. I called an agent. I gave him some money. That one did 419 with us, carried our money away. But in 2021, after I was inside that sandwich, I called Bukola, one of my friends that works in Deloitte. She's in Ontario now. I called. I said, Bukola, she had just gotten a provision. I said, please, what's that process again? Let's start. I need to get on. And so that was how I started the journey again. And then I decided that the school was the best route for me because I had not done my master's. It was more expensive, but it was easier to achieve. And we also decided that it was going to be Canada. We looked at Canada, we looked at the UK, because those were the two countries at that time that were giving a lot of different kinds of visas. So yes, I also wanted to have international experience. So I had gotten to a stage in my career where I wanted to layer on international experience to the experience that I had back home. So those were some of my decisions and all that.
I understand that experience where something just hits you and in the middle of it and you are like, what am I doing here? This is not me.
No.
It just reawakens the fire again. I'd be like, you know what? I need to take this thing serious. I need to leave. Yeah. That's crazy. Just like the traffic we had a few days ago.
2 days ago, I heard about it. I saw it on people's Twitter.
I'm sure that a lot of people probably will go back to start processing their.
There's always a trigger. There's always a trigger.
Exactly.
Like, no, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What am I doing here?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, just like you mentioned, I think you already, gave us like a clue around this, that relocation was never like the plan for you. Like, if you look at your goals and if you look at the plans that you've had, it was never like a plan for you. But you just knew that, I may probably love to, get this international experience, but it was never something that you were, in with full force to go about it, especially the fact that your husband from the early start wasn't so much interested in relocating, right? But knowing that we've seen around, the little things that were the triggers, right? did you face, apart from the initial time where your husband was like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Was there any other resistance from family, friends, colleagues when you made that decision? Was there any other resistance?
So another thing that I wanted to relocate for again was because of my children. So I'd always wanted them to have a certain kind of education, especially for the tertiary level. And it was something that my husband and I had discussed. It was first degree. So at first we had said, they'll do their first degree in Nigeria, and then they'll now go and do their masters abroad. But later it now dawned on me that if my daughter goes to school to read the microbiology that I read in 2002, they will still use the same curriculum again. That same thing that I studied 20 years ago. They will use it to teach her.
Exactly.
So I just knew that. I just knew that. I felt like I needed to do better, for them to just give a little bit more. Yeah. So just wanted to layer that. So in terms of resistance, I would say, no, from my own family side, there was none again, because my mom had been there for so long. She had gotten a green card. She had then gotten a citizenship. My dad had gotten his green card. So it was like almost everyone. My dad had not gotten his green card. My dad was not even interested in going. He was like, no, because I was there in Nigeria with him. So he was, no. Yeah. He likes that his house in Ikorodu. So, so from my family side, there was no resistance. But from my husband's side, there was also no resistance, of course. But my mother-in-law lives with me, a very, very wonderful woman. My husband's mom, very wonderful. She literally, the way God, and I was just thinking about it recently on Mother's Day. God goes ahead of us. So God had known that my mom was not going to be around for a very long time. And then he just gave me a mother-in-law that is so peaceful. It's so helpful. My mother-in-law spoils me more than my mom. So my mother-in-law, she didn't say anything. The only thing that she said was that, because she's very peaceful now. She's not she's very wise. She picks her. She doesn't use words carelessly. She was like, are you sure you want to leave this your well-paying job? She has a pet name that she calls me, Arike. She was like, Arike, are you sure you want to leave this your well-paying job with this car, with the driver, with all the other perks that at loss abroad, she was saying to Yoruba, hey, what will not bear from the scratch money? So sure. So that's just, she was just concerned, and I was like, it's a sacrifice that I want to make, for the children majorly, and of course for myself, because again, I also wanted to have that international experience. At that time, a lot of our friends were also doing it. So my husband's best friend, a friendship of almost 40 years or something now, of over 30 years, they also went, and we're always rolling in the same circle. So they also were thinking about the same thing. And the funny thing was that we moved. So I think they traveled on the 1st of September 2022. We left on the 2nd of September 2022. My own very good friend at the time, she left on the 3rd of September 2022. So we all left one day apart. So even our network, but they are in Ontario. My other friend, she went to the UK. So within our network, we were all having the same conversation. Do you understand? So that's our close network. So there was no resistance there, because the very closest people to us, were also moving. Two were moving to Canada. One was moving to Canada. My husband's best friend was moving to Canada with us, but they're in a different province. My own very good friend at the time was moving to the UK. So there was no resistance there. The only other place that there was a bit of a pushback was with my boss then at Flour Mills, Wale Adediran, whom you will know. When I told him, he was like, hey, Bunmi, are you sure? And I didn't really understand 100% what he was saying then, but now I see it, because I'm actually going to come back home once I'm done with whatever the vision is that we want to do. It was like that he feels that God planted us in certain countries for certain reasons. There's a lot of work that we need to do in the human capital space. If I'm leaving, there's going to be a void. When he was saying it, I was like, Oga, beg. In my mind, I was just like, Oga, beg, free me. But I now understand what he really meant. So there wasn't a resistance, because everybody around us were doing the same thing, and just apart from my mother-in-law and my boss, and my dad that didn't want to do his green card. The minute he heard that I was moving to Canada, he just called my sister, process my green card, because he now knew that Bunmi is no longer going to be around, and but his only child left in Nigeria. So
Yeah.
he and my mom, they're in the States now. So they shuttle. They do like 6 months in, 6 months out.
Exactly. Yeah. So, from the whole discussion we've been having, I think I've picked out two reasons why someone will want to relocate, right? Number one, you spoke about, just that desire of saying, I wanted a touch of, international experience on my profile. Secondly, you wanted your children to have like an international exposure, especially as it relates to education. What other reasons do you think people will want to relocate? Like, what other thing do you think people should look at to hold as, something that can encourage them to want to look towards that side?
Yes. So alternative citizenship will be one that I would say. Alternative citizenship, what that does really is just, and I don't look at things from too much of an emotional perspective. I look at it from a practical perspective. We spend lots of times queuing up for visas and all of that, right? So if you have an alternative citizenship, you literally can live anywhere. You can live in Nigeria, you can live in your second country, you can even go and live in another country for a while. So that's one. Depending on where you are in your life, financial opportunity too, right? Nigeria can the way Nigeria is set up, it doesn't give everyone like a fair playing ground. That is where the West is different. Do you understand? So the West is different in the terms that it gives everyone that wants to work, right? As long as you want to work, it gives you the fair playing ground to be able to afford to buy a car, buy a house. You can pay it. If you buy a house now, you can pay it in 20 years or 30 years. Buy a car, you can pay it off in 5 years, right? So that's another thing. So financial, it gives you better financial opportunities, but that depends on, that also depends on where you are. So it depends. Like I spoke about my mom, my family then fell on hard times. So my mom, for example, sees relocation as the biggest financial blessing she has ever received in my life. I don't see it that way because, again, I wasn't doing bad when I was in Nigeria. You understand?
Exactly.
So depending on where you are in your life, it can be a source of financial prosperity for you. Then 3, access to, international exposure is very, very good. There's so many things that you don't know when you don't live where you are. Do you understand? So when you don't know where you are, you don't know things. So traveling, experiencing a new culture, new people, new way of life is good. Then access to infrastructure. That's another thing that is education, healthcare, the roads are good. There's light. Of course, you're paying for everything, and that's okay. There's light, there's water, everything that you need to live, just a basic kind of life is there. You don't have to hustle for light. You don't have to hustle for water. You don't have to hustle for certain things.
For healthcare system.
So healthcare system, although in Canada, the healthcare system is broken. And the reason is that they don't have enough professionals. They don't have enough medical professionals to fit in. So there's always a long wait list and all of that.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure is there. The service is there. It might just take you time to access it. For example, I need to do an MRI. And I'm on a wait list because I have back pain and sciatica. And I'm on a 1-year wait list. Wow. Yes, I'm on a 1-year wait list if I want to use the public system. But if I want to go and pay for it privately, then I have to pay $4,000 to do it. I'm not going to pay $4,000. So I'll wait on that wait list. So those are the things that people can look forward to from my own perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think just, some of the things you've mentioned, I think one of the things that really caught my interest is infrastructure, right? Especially over here in Africa, you have issues around healthcare, situations that people should not have lost their life, but basically because the healthcare system is not just there yet. You see people lose their life and all those stuff. So I think the infrastructure is very, very important. Education side of it too, just like you mentioned, is something that is good to, have that career exposure, just like you mentioned earlier, where you just have your hands on how this thing is done somewhere else. You probably must have done HR for 10 years, for 15 years, for 7, 8 years, 5 years in Nigeria, but that's not all there is, right? By the time you have this exposure out there, you see that, wow, there's just a lot that I wasn't doing, or I didn't even know that it exists, right? So so I think at this point, I will want us to talk a little bit around the whole moving into Canada especially the career side of it, right? Like we all know, or like you already established, your career in Nigeria was at a very good place, right? I'm using the word good place because I knew that there were still some ladders to climb, but you were at a point where you could beat your chest and said, "Oh, you've achieved something for yourself. Like you've done it, right?" You were at that point. Moving from that point to say, you are in Canada or you arrived Canada. What was the experience like?
God. So maybe that was why my name was dropped in your heart, because honestly, I struggled. Oh my gosh, I struggled so much. I struggled so much. Starting over here in Canada was something that I really struggled, and it's funny because, and this thing actually affected a very important relationship in my life, because I mean, my friend, she didn't understand why I was struggling so much, because in her head, like, what's this pain that you are carrying around so much. And I mean, but that was my own journey, right? We are all different. People can go through the same thing and go through it in a different way. It was definitely a learning curve for me. It affected me personally. It affected a lot of areas. However, in terms of specifically, let's say, getting a job. So I came through school, right? So I was in school for about 15 months, a year and 3 months. And so because of the way we moved and the fact that I came with 3 children, and again, my husband is not here with us. So I'm here more with the girls. I have 3 girls. My husband shuttles because, I mean, he's an established, just like I was an established professional back home. Yeah. He's an established businessman back home. He's not going to close down his business because of Canada. Doesn't make any sense. The lucrative business. So there's no point in shutting that down. So pending when he finds something to do here, which, he hasn't found yet because he doesn't spend a lot of time here. He shuttles. So I was basically here a lot of times with the girls, although he comes very often. He spends like he does like 2 months in, 2 months out, or 3 months in, 3 months out. Yeah. So, but then again, this was the first time of me living away from him, right? We've always been, and at this point, we have been married for 16 years or 17 years. Yeah. So we had always lived together. I've never had to live away from him. And my husband is very dear to me. I have a very good relationship with him. So it was hard for me not to be with him. And I didn't even know, and the way we are in Nigeria, where we don't process emotions very well. And that's another thing that happened to me. I had to come in touch with my emotions when I got to Canada. Like all the emotional aspects of me that I wasn't facing back home, because I'm the first child. I was raised to, when you're a first child, you're raised to just keep going. When things happen, you don't process very well. You're just told to keep on moving. The sort of break in the transition and the difficulties that I faced here while transitioning made me to be a bit more in touch with my emotional side. I had to start to ask myself difficult questions, but that's a different thing. But in terms of career, it took me a while to get a job. I first of all needed to settle down with the girls. So I didn't look for a job immediately. I wasn't working. I didn't work for the whole time that I was in school because of, again, there's a second person that is earning an income in the house, which is my husband. But that was an income in Naira that he was converting to Canadian dollars. And he did that for so long until I got a job. So, and it was a lot of money. So I started looking for a job because I looked at the cost on him and I felt this is so much, even though it wasn't like he was complaining or anything. So I started looking for a job like 6 months before I graduated, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to get a job before I actually graduated. I didn't want to start looking for a job after I graduated. And it was so difficult. Like I didn't think that I was going to experience such difficulty because, I'm established. It's clear that I am an experienced professional. It's not like I'm transitioning or I'm pivoting into a new career. I didn't have plans for that. I was still going to stay within my HR space. So I didn't expect it to be that difficult, So I searched. It truly, I got a job 3 months after I graduated. But because I'd been searching for a job 6 months before I graduated, it looked like it was a 9-month wait. but it really wasn't really like a 9 months wait because I was still in school. But I finished in December. And by March I had gotten a job. I resumed in April. So, but the journey from starting school to getting the job, it was a whole lot. A lot happened there professionally, with job applications and rejections and everything. And a lot also happened in my personal life. So yeah, it was difficult. But not everybody will have it difficult like I did.
Exactly.
And my own story is not even difficult, really. It's not even a hard one because really, again, I got a job 3 months after I graduated. So if I put that in perspective, that's a short wait. Some people wait for 2 years. Some people have been here 3 years, 4 years. They haven't gotten, jobs in their profession.
Yeah. So I think there's something you mentioned that, caught my interest, and I'll just want us to, maybe you should just throw more light around it, especially when it comes to, how, the whole emotions, because you said something, over here in Nigeria, right? There's just a lot that we don't process, especially when it comes to our emotions. There's this popular statement that, Nigerians always adapt, even though I'm learning to start to frown against that, right? That Nigerians always adapt. Whatever is thrown at them, they just find a way to turn it into happiness and all that stuff. It shouldn't be like that anyway. So, do you want to, talk a little bit around, especially from your experience, people that, Nigerians that are over there, what's that shock that makes you to realize that I've really not been in touch with my emotions all this while? What is that trigger that just opens your eyes and says, you get?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone is going to go through it that way. I think that was just my own journey. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I feel like I feel like my own journey was just that moving to Canada was the trigger. Moving and my transitioning pain, right, was the trigger that made me start to face my emotions. Do you see? But I don't think everybody will go through that, because I know people that relocated the same way. I had friends that relocated. They didn't have that same story as I. They were fine. Do you understand? They were taking things that they went. So I don't really know what it was. A lot of it was really, really missing home. Right. So I think that's where it started from. So I didn't expect it, because again, like I said, when I went to have my child in 2016, I was like, I'd like to live abroad. Who doesn't want to live in a sane environment like this? Forgetting that I was then, that time I just gave birth. I was a visitor there for 3 months. I was with my mom. My mom was cooking for me every day. It's different from actually coming to live
and experience it yourself.
Thank you. And live daily yourself and support your children through that process. So not only are you transitioning, I had 3 children, 2 in high school and 1 in kindergarten. They're also going through their own process, and I had to be there with them. Again, I was in school. Add that with the fact that, when I now started looking for a job, everything was just hard. Everywhere was, and I don't know why everywhere is quiet like this here. In Nigeria, you will be hearing background noise.
Exactly.
Even if you live in a very quiet estate, there's still background noise that you will hear.
Exactly.
Here, there's not, you will not hear a thing. Oh God. Everywhere is just like eerie quiet. Like, why am I not, So it was just a lot that I really, really, really struggled with. Then it dawned on me that I missed home so much. I missed, really what I missed my life back home. Like you said at the beginning, I did have a fabulous life back home, and that's the truth. No matter what anyone thinks about it, because someone gave a nasty comment to that, but that's it. I did have a fabulous life back home, powered by God Almighty. I have a good marriage. I still do. I had children doing well. I had a good job. My husband has a business that was doing well. Everything was in place. And then I had a support system. My mother-in-law was living with me. I had a housekeeper. I had someone that was driving me here and there. I had all these people around, there were people to do everything for me.
For you,
provide the money for it to be done. And then you get here and then you have all that support system taken away from you. My mother-in-law was nowhere to be found. Even the voice, my our housekeeper back home, Auntie Rose, she's been with us for over 10 years. She has a very loud voice, which can be annoying. But when I got to Canada, I was missing her, but I'm like, hey God, I can't even hear Auntie Rose's voice. What's going on? No, it was really tough. So then I now think another thing that happened was that when I now started applying for jobs and getting rejections, because those rejections come and they can be very, if you're not careful, you can take it personal. Do you understand? What's wrong with me that I received 10 rejection emails in one day? It can be a lot. So all of that started making me feel a certain way. So at first it started with discomfort and pain, right? But then eventually, for me to process that discomfort and pain, I had to look at it. Okay, Bunmi, what are you feeling here? Why are you feeling this way? So I had to just ask myself difficult questions. So it was also then that I realized that so many things had even happened back home. Different painful experiences that happened back home, especially around my career, that I didn't process very well. When they just say, oh, move on, you would just move on, but you didn't actually process it very well to say, oh, this is what happened here. These were some of the things that I did wrong, but maybe also there were some issues with this organization, and all of that. So everything just came to a head. Again, I also had issues in some of my personal relationships. Do you understand? Some of them evolved, some of them even broke down completely. So it was a lot. Even the marriage as well, there was the transition pain for the marriage itself. So it was just a lot. I think it was just I think leaving what I knew back home and transitioning into a new life just sort of showed me some things that were wrong, or some areas that I had not addressed that now needed to be addressed. And that's still a journey. We've done very well already, but it's a continuous process.
Thank you so much. I think the whole story got me emotional at some point. Because get to think about all those things. Sometimes you probably may not so much value these things until they are taken away from you, and you just realize that, wow. Yes. Your system has been so used to that experience that exactly. Now living without it, you just feel a very big void and an empty space and all that stuff. So, but just talking about the career transition again. So, what are those things that you've seen with the work culture, the expectations, the job application process compared to when you are in Nigeria? Like I said, you are the perfect example for this, because you've worked in Nigeria for a good number of years, right? You've gone through the ladder from an entry level to, a senior executive. I just want to know what is that difference between their work culture, their expectations, the job application process, everything related to that. What's that difference between there and here?
And here, I think in terms of the job applications, so I'll take that one first. In terms of the job applications, I think it's just because I can't remember in Nigeria that I had to send 50 applications in one day. There's nothing that will make me do. Even when I did not have job in Nigeria, so I did not send 50 job applications. Where are you even going to 50 vacancies every month?
I'm telling you.
So it's just different in that setup that, here, because there were times in Nigeria that I didn't have job, that I was in between jobs, and I never went as hard as I did when I got here. So here, it's just having to send those multiple applications. Then another thing is that a lot of companies here use applicant tracking system. I know companies in Nigeria also use applicant tracking systems, but maybe not as many as over here. So, and because that's a robot, that it's garbage in, garbage out, or it's what it has been filled. The input is the output. So you need to tailor your CVs, to match certain keywords in the position description or the job description in the system for that particular role. So it was very tedious. Do you understand? Having to have this 1 million, there's so many different resumes because I was applying for different jobs, and each of them had, even though it was still HR, but the keywords and the job descriptions were all different. After a while, I just realized that this is too much. I can't do this. Like, I just told God that I cannot continue to tailor my CV with every role. I can't, because it made the process more tedious for me. So I stopped doing it and I just stuck with one CV and I continue to do that. Also, dealing with rejections is also is also really tough. I think it's really tougher here. Also because it's the quantity of applications that you send. That's the same quantity of rejections that you receive.
I have a friend that so I think there was a time where he was in desperate need of jobs and he was just applying wherever he sees.
In Nigeria and Canada.
In Nigeria, he's a data engineer in Nigeria. So he was applying, he would go on Indeed, all job boards that exist, as long as he has something to do with data. This my friend will apply, whether in Canada, whether in India, everywhere. He was just so desperate. And he told me something. He said he has been receiving rejection even after like 6 months. Even after a year, he still receives. Sometimes he may just wake up and see rejection from a job that he applied.
Oh yeah, go. As he has stopped applying, so he has already gotten the job. And
he has gotten the job. So he kept on having those rejections back to back because of the volume of application that he has sent out.
And that's exactly it, and that's it. When you are here, you will use LinkedIn, you will use Indeed, you will use all these various platforms to apply. So dealing with the rejections and not taking that personal. So I had to eventually tell myself that, oh, Bunmi, these rejections are not a reflection of your competence or anything. It's just feedback that you haven't yet found the company that will take you. When your own company comes, there will not be any discussion. They will want you so much that they will do anything and everything to have you. And that's eventually what happened, with me. By the time I got my job, the one I'm doing now, which is the second HR job I've done in Canada, like they waited for me for like 4 months because I was living somewhere else. They did too many things, but there's no need to go into that. Also, another challenge was going outside my comfort zone. So again, you're in a new country, you're having to deal with, understanding the new accents, no matter how exposed you are from back home. Yeah. You would still need to pay attention a little bit, otherwise you might miss what somebody is saying. And so imagine that you're learning that and then they're now telling you that you have to go and network again. Even networking in Nigeria, that is your comfort zone, is hard. I mean, I'm an introvert, although people don't believe. So now say I'll come to network with a bunch of people that are foreigners. So those were some of the challenges that I faced, and those were some of the ways that it was different, from back home, in terms of the job application. In terms of what cultural or workplace differences, expectations. So I think that in terms of it's a very, very performance-driven culture here. There aren't enough, all those emotions that we do back home. Oh, God, madam, please, there's not. There's nothing like that here. It exists, but not. It exists because at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and human behavior still drive things. But then, within a cultural context, they are not set up that way to use emotions, especially in the workplace. They are more straightforward, direct in making decisions, whether they need to hire, whether they need to fire. So another thing that I found I didn't experience culture shock, in the workplace, because again, I'm a HR professional. So there are some certain things that I know. And then my parents always say that I'm built like a foreign person. So the way that I am, I don't have a lot of Nigerian blood, even though I'm Nigerian, I don't have a lot of Nigerian friends and all that. So it's very easy for me to transition here. I didn't have any issues. Some of the things that I just noticed that they are very time conscious. So for example, 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock is 7 o'clock. If you are 5 minutes late, you're actually late. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, you can be fashionably late, even to meetings sometimes, and especially if you're a boss, you can walk in here, although it's not good. They also love their pets here so much. There's so much love for their pets. So you actually literally need, that's another thing that I realized, that, their pets are an integral part of their life. It's like their children. So now, I always make sure that in my teams, I get to know them, not just their children or whatever. I also get to know their pets' names, what are their pictures, and, ask about them. And that's another thing that I found to be different. Every day that you come to work, oh, how was your evening? How did you spend the rest of your evening yesterday? You're not just expected to say fine. You're expected to say, oh, it went well, or it was good. I did so. So even if it's just that you laid down on your bed, like they're expecting some sort of engagement, or if it's how was your weekend. So you need to stay back. I mean that I'm always just going. You need to actually stay back and stop and then have that conversation you know,
Yeah. With them.
with them about, oh, I did this over the weekend and all that. Here also, nobody expects you to work late, unlike in Nigeria, where, you know, certain organizational cultures expect you to stay behind and work late. Nobody expects you to work late here. I'm not saying that there are not organizations in Canada that are also funny like that. They are, you know, but a bulk of them will not be, because I mean, there is a strong labor board that is monitored. People can go and report, so you can't just do anyhow. So no one expects you to work late. You are just expected to do your job. Do your job within the time that you're supposed to do it. And break time is break time. In my own office right now, your break time, you're not paid for your break time. So you're not paid for that break time. So when it's break time, everybody departs. Everybody exits. They actually go out. And I live in a very small town, which is so charming. So there's no traffic. Everywhere is 10 minutes. And I've never lived in a small town before. I was born in Lagos, bred in Lagos, and everything. I know how chaotic that Lagos is. So it's been so wonderful living in this small town. Like, God blesses us in seemingly innocuous things that don't look glamorous, but there are blessings in it. So you can leave, you know, go out for lunch, you know, for that 1 hour and come back, you know, refreshed and all of that. So those are some of the differences. In Nigeria now, when you're on lunch break, I mean, you cannot drive you can't say you want to drive 30 because you'll be stuck in traffic.
You just come back after work. Probably go home from there.
So those are some of the differences.
Okay, great. I think, you know, you've really given us an experience on how, you know, the workplace over there is like, the work culture, the expectation, the job application process. You know, you've really dived into that aspect. I want us to look at the financial side of it, right?
Okay.
The financial side of it. Let's look at the financial implication and the economic reality. I'll have a very straight question. Do you think, because, you know, especially with the whole Naira devaluation and all those stuff, the more it makes, you know, Japa expensive, the more it makes relocation expensive, right?
So
you know,
true.
some years back, you know, a couple of millions could, you know, take you across the border. But now, you know, you probably need to have some substantial amount of money, right, to start to even you know, thinking of the process. Do you think that the financial implication really worth it? Do you think the investment worth it?
My goodness, that's such a really, I don't know, that I won't say the question is tough, but I'll just say it also depends. Now, it depends on the scenarios that people find themselves in. Do you understand? Everybody has a different experience of abroad life. So some people come in and things fall into place for them so easily. And I understand what you mean by cost. So for example, when we traveled in 2022, the ticket for the 5 of us was 3-point-something million, right? But now I'm sure that because we plan to come to Nigeria to spend some few weeks, if not this year, maybe next year, Christmas, I'm sure we will not spend anything less than 10 million. So things have changed in terms of inflation so much, and things are also expensive even here in Canada. Now people have different experiences, and we're all different. So people come here. If, for example, you are young and you have not established yourself very well back home, or you fell on hard times, moving here will be a leeway for you because you don't even have much back home in the first place. Do you understand? So in terms of answering that question from that perspective, then yes, it will be worth it. So for example, with my mom, so I will use my mom again, real life story as a case study. She used up all her savings that she had at the time. That was 2001. All her savings and all her gratuity, all her pension, everything. It was a lot of money, Daniel. That was everything that she had gathered for over 20 years. She used that to invest in getting the what's it called? The visa, because she paid someone. It was runs, right? And so she basically used up all her savings. But then she moved to US. She was able to build their house. So they had a land My parents had a land in my father's house in Ikorodu now that I spoke about that he likes so well.
Yeah.
So they had a land, but they had not started developing it. They were developing on that one. But it was from the money that she made abroad that she was sending home. Do you understand that they were able to build? They were able to build that house. So if you ask my mom or anybody else that was not doing well in Nigeria or had financial difficulties, the straight answer to that question will be yes. No matter how much they must have borrowed or used from their savings, the fact of the matter is that they were not doing, things were tough for them back home. So when they moved here, when you get here, you can do something called survival job. You don't have to, if you don't get a job in your profession, you can do survival job. I didn't have to do survival job. I just waited until I got my professional job. But that was because my husband was working back home and he was sending money for us to meet up with our livelihood there. So you can do survival job and it pays well, right? If you run shifts, like people that work in healthcare, health support and everything that take care of the elderly people or the people that are frail and weak and sick, they pay them very well. And if they run good shifts, they're able to earn good money to repay back whatever debts that they might have incurred when they were home in trying to move here and establish themselves. Again, this place is a leveler for everybody. Everybody has car, everybody has house, everybody has, because you can buy these things. You can buy these things on credit.
Yeah.
But that's the answer to that question from that perspective. Now, if you were someone or are someone that were earning very good money back home, it may at the end of the day, in terms of finances, right? It still may be worth it, but then you may not necessarily, in terms of apples to apples, you may not necessarily be earning more or have more because you have relocated, right? So, but then it's still worth it, right? Because maybe you are earning in Canadian dollars, it's a stronger currency. Perhaps you're able to save a little bit more than you will have saved back home, so that is it. There is a certain brand of some other people that find it really, really difficult to establish themselves here. I was still speaking to someone yesterday who was telling me that a friend of hers told her that she knows very well that once they get their blue passport, their Canadian passport, they are going home, because she has been here for 3 years in Canada and she has not been able to get a job, even in the cybersecurity field and everything that she pivoted herself into and everything. It's been tough for her. I'm sure she's doing some kind of job, but for her to be saying that, because her husband still works in Nigeria and sends money, for her to say that, I look forward to going home, then that's another person's experience.
Yeah.
So you understand?
Experience,
It is different. It's not blanket. It's not one size fits all. It's not everybody that will come here and then things will just work for them and all that. And it's not every time. I always say this thing. We teach a lot about things. Do this, and this will happen. There are gray areas in this life. Some people will do those same things. Some people will do those same things, and they will still not record the same results. Exactly. Life can be mysterious. There's a mysterious element to life. Do you understand? That we don't know about. So that's it. That's the answer to that question. It really depends. It's worth it financially if you were really struggling. If you were not struggling back home, it might just be like the same. It might just be like, it's the same thing. And I think that's where I fall in. Like I was telling, I don't feel more blessed or more prosperous living in Canada. No. I was blessed back home and I am blessed here. Wherever it is that I am, I'm blessed. I don't feel richer. I don't feel, oh my God, I'm in Canada. I don't feel that way. I just know that, I'm in Canada. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I don't feel more prosperous being here. I have access to a different set of opportunities. My children have access to a different set of opportunities, but I am not necessarily richer financially because I am in Canada. Maybe I am saving a little bit more, but I did not suddenly come into some great wealth. You understand what I'm saying? If you are doing 9 to 5, a lot of us are just middle income earners here. And you are servicing. The good thing again about here, like I spoke about credit. So you are servicing, and it's good for you to use credit, because if you don't use your credit, you will not be able to buy a house, because nobody in where I live, house is like $750,000 or $1 million. I live in the most expensive province. So where are you going to get that to put down at once? So you will still need to buy the house on credit. So credit is a good way for you to, you need to build a credit report by using credit. So it really depends on your situation, and I think it's worth it if you are struggling back home. And then if you are not struggling back home, if you are looking for an opportunity to do better in terms of whatever it is in your life, all of us have different goals. We all have different things we want to achieve per time. It's quite worth it.
Okay, so another thing I think I would just want you to touch a little bit is around, because I feel this is one reason why people, when they want to make decisions, they think about it a lot, especially for established people in career or in business. That fear of saying, I love what I'm doing. For example, I'm a HR professional. I love what I'm doing, but the idea of going somewhere else and trying to see that I still fit myself in the HR field. So there's that risk that I may just fall out to start doing something else, just so that I earn a living and continue in that direction. And I really don't want to go out of HR, or I love what I'm doing in whatever field. And that fear of saying I'm going back there, probably I'm now a manager in the banking sector or a senior manager. I know what that means. You've been building for some years and now you're a manager or a senior manager, and I want to make this move. There's likelihood that I'll probably go start from maybe a mid-level or so, right? So what's that like? What's that like?
Yeah, so there's something called, I don't know whether it's opportunity cost. There's something, when you make a sacrifice, sometimes you have there are trade-offs, right? Again, it's not everybody that would start afresh. So again, we all have different stories. Some people come here and they were directors back home and then they continue to be a director. I know someone that used to live in my estate. She's in the HR field. She was a director back home. She moved here and she got a job as a HR director for a very large, very, very large governmental aviation company. If I mention her name, you know her. So we all have different stories. And so we cannot use one person's experience or two people's experience or 10 people's experiences to then decide to use that as a yardstick of the decisions that we would make, right? So it is not everyone that would start. So let me first of all establish it. It is not everyone that would start afresh. If you're a senior manager back home, you could still get a managerial job here when you move here. Having said that, that is also not the case all the time. Again, a lot of times people start from maybe not afresh, but they will start. So I wouldn't say I started afresh, but I'm not a manager. I was a senior manager before I left Nigeria. I'd headed HR, I was head of HR somewhere, I was at that level, but I am not a manager right now. I report to a manager. Now, what does that look like in real terms? Canada has a heavy tax system. So the more you earn, the more you pay the government, right? Yeah. So yes, you will still have more take-home pay and it also depends on what your organization is paying. That's another thing though. So the managerial level is good for you in terms of cash, because a lot of times in Nigeria, we always look at things from a cash value, right? Just what's the money, please? And also from the position of importance that it gives to us. Oh, we are managers, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong in that. Whatever it is that serves you, please go after it. But what I'm saying is that for you to start afresh as a generalist role, so I'm a HR generalist right now. If I became a manager, for example, I think that the only difference to my take-home pay might be, I don't know, let me not talk from a place of ignorance. So it's not, I don't know, how do I put this now? Starting afresh or starting whatever, you will take a bit of a pay cut, but I mean, you will still be able to meet up with your responsibilities. I think that's what I'm trying to say. You will still live well, because if you are earning low, for example, you will not be taxed as much. So if you're earning 50K, for example, per annum, you will not be taxed as much as the person that is earning 80-something thousand, and you will not be taxed, and the person that is something thousand will not be taxed as much as the person that is earning 100,000. So you need put that in perspective first for you to have peace. So it's not like, my God, and I'm going to have some very big payday once I get this 120K job. Yeah, there'll be a difference in your take-home pay, but is it going to be significant to now make you a millionaire? No. So we need to when we are analyzing these situations, we need to be wise in terms of what do we hope to achieve, and what are we going to sacrifice to get there. When you start at that generalist role, right, you don't have to be there forever. Again, that's where I am now. I'm sure I'm not going to be a generalist forever. I'm still going to eventually be a manager. I don't know what time that would look like, and I don't know whether it's going to be with my current organization or with another organization. I don't have, over the years in my career, I have a lot of things that God has dealt with me, right? Things like pride, things like self-aggrandizement, all those kind of things that will drive you for wanting to be in a leadership position. Oh my God, I can't report to someone that that is younger than me. Oh my God, I can't, all those other things beyond pay. So I talked about the pay. The pay is not necessarily a big deal as such. You just have a little bit more disposable income when you earn more. And that is good, yes. But remember, again, it's just for a time period that you are going to go back. You are going to, move back to move forward. Even in Nigeria, there was a time during my career that I had to take a lower paying job, to start. When I wanted to start in HR, the first job I got paid me much lower than what I was earning like 7 years ago, right? So in life, sometimes that's just the menu that you are served. So go through it, smile through it. It's not the end of the world. There's actually even nothing wrong with it. At the end of the day, you just want to be able to meet up with your financial obligations to yourself and your family. So are you able to do that? Yes. There's dignity in labor. So I don't see what the big deal is that then becomes a reason why someone will not want to move, because they need to start afresh again. Yes, you start afresh, but then you're still going to be paid well.
I think the next question I wanted to ask, you already answered it. So there's no need to be scared to start all over again, right? Just like you said, there's that place where you need to give, you need to allow some things to go. There are some places where it's a trade-off, just like you mentioned, where you need to sometimes you just allow things go. And the fact that you also mentioned that there are people who left in certain grade and still maintained those grades, because I like the fact that you mentioned that sometimes in life you really cannot do A, do B and get C, right? No. It doesn't work like that all the time. Sometimes it works.
One is not always equals to 2.
Exactly. So sometimes there's just some missing piece that you can't see, but when you get into it, you find a way around it, and you get your answer. But why we round up the discussion, I would like you to speak from the point of family. Okay. How do you think that family should look at relocation, especially I would say a newly wedded couple, because the whole idea of relocation is now very popular, like just some few years back. So, and I believe that especially from newly wedded couple, how do you think they should go about relocation? What are the kind of discussions they should be having in that space? Let's look at it from that point. So then we just use it to round up.
Yeah, I think so for me, because of my own personal experience, and this is not a blanket advice, of course, because again, it's coming from me. I'm just one human being, a planet of 1 billion people, and we would always share different perspectives. Whilst we can relocate at any age and stage of our life, my mom left when she was 49. I left when I was 41. My sister left when she was 22 or 23 or something, but what I have seen is that, the younger you are, the easier it is for you to quickly, adopt, because you are young, you haven't had a lot of, so I've had more memories in Nigeria, and they were very good memories. And I feel that maybe that's one of the reasons why I really, really struggled. So if the younger you are, so what I typically tell people now is that if you want to move, just try and do it early. Also because, the earlier you go, the earlier you get your blue passport. And if you are thinking of moving back to Nigeria, like I am going to come back home, because again, my husband is not here always, then the earlier you get that done, the earlier you are able to go back home and continue what you want to do at home. So having said that, I think for a young couple, it would be very important. It's very important for them to I don't know, for young couples anyway, their marriage is at a different stage. Marriage has different stages and cycles too. So for example, our marriage had its own hits when we moved here, but we walked it through. So you need to think about how that move may impact your marriage. It may also not, because again, it's a young couple. So they don't even have children or anything else distracting them. Maybe it's just the two of them, right? They will need to think about, what is my why? So everybody must have their compelling reason. What is your strong why? My own strong why is very, very clear. My children, first two that I had in Nigeria, I want to give them this other opportunity. So yes, I would sacrifice my professional community back home, all my achievements back home, to achieve this for the family and this alternative citizenship. So what is our why? Why do we want to do this? So that needs to be at the fore. Another thing that they should talk about is the finances. So because at some point in time, the children are going to be coming in, right? So, and there's no nanny or anything here. It's not that there's no nanny, but you have to be really rich to be able to afford them, because they pay them
exactly.
They pay them the way they pay everybody else. They are just on the lower income. But the lower income is not something that a middle class person can afford.
Yeah.
So even two-digit family, even two-income families, and that's another thing that makes, the financial, and I forgot to mention this when you talked about finances. That's another thing that makes the financials really good here. So imagine that two people were earning really strong incomes in Canada. That really now, that really now, changes the game in terms of what your disposable income is together. So imagine one person having a take-home pay of maybe 4,800, another person having a take-home pay of maybe 5,500 or 6,500. That's good. That's really good, because how much will you even pay for your mortgage? Your mortgage will be 3,500 or 4,000 in an expensive province like British Columbia. You have the remaining to save for your children's college and all of that. So you would want to talk about finances. When the children come, who is going to work? Are we both going to continue to work? Is the woman, because we're Africans, typically it's the woman that will stay home as an African culture. So is the woman going to stay home? How long is she going to stay home for? If she's the kind of woman that wants to work, what does she feel about this? Does she feel good to sacrifice for the next 5 years or 6 years when the children have, or just be working in between and all of that? So that's another thing. Also, they need to also look at if they would actually want to raise their children. Do they want to even raise their children here? Because again, like I always say, there are problems everywhere. Someone told me once when I was moving that when you move abroad, you stop praying to God. And I looked at the person, because that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. So I just knew I was not going to argue, because you don't even know my own relationship with God. How can I stop talking to my father? I don't really understand. But I decided not to talk about that. So I now asked him, I said, why? He said, because the things that you pray about in Nigeria, they are easily available abroad. And I'm like, but in the first place, I don't even pray about those things in Nigeria, because I have them readily available already. But I also told him, I said, the problems in the West are of a different kind, right? So yes, Nigeria has problems, but this place too, they have their own problems. They have, we talked about the fact that it's an isolated I talked about how quiet it was here. This place is an isolated place. They don't have a strong sense of community like we have back home. So they live in a lot of, and that's why they have pets a lot, because those dogs provide emotional support for them, because a lot of them live alone, or they just have one partner, or they say they don't want children, different things. That's why there's a high rate of depression and anxiety and mental health problems in the West, right? And then they also have their own very dark sides too, the LGBTQ, for example. So do you want to actually, so you want to have that conversation? Do you want to raise your children in that kind of system? For example, when we came here, my older girls, I have 3 girls, 2 older ones, one is off to college in August, the other one is 16. Then I have a 9-year-old. When we were coming, she was 6. So that 6-year-old, the older ones had a good Nigerian culture and upbringing and everything. The 6-year-old, we're just getting to that place then. So for example, we had to make certain decisions. So I had to put her in a in a Christian school, right? And we are paying for that. If I put her in a public school, I'm not going to pay a dime. But because I know what I am looking for, so I would rather pay what I'm paying every month, which is actually a lot of money, and have some sanity that, there are some certain things that they are not going to come and teach my child.
Exactly.
At a certain time of the month here.
Yeah.
So these things are real, and they are the dark sides, right, of living in the West. So those are the conversations that I think couples should have. How soon do we want to buy a house? Regular things like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think it's been an amazing time. Spent an hour plus.
Yes.
And that's exciting. Thank you so much. I think I've enjoyed the experience, the whole journey from the idea coming in relocation, from your experience in traffic
and trailer, traffic and trailer.
To moving to the point of saying, we start the journey, we think about it, your arrival, your transition into career, job applications, the financial aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it, and the advice that families could, especially younger families, what they should be looking out for when they want to make decisions like this. I think that's been a fantastic 1 hour with you. Thank you so much. I will appreciate. I will know that in the long run, or sometime later in the future, we'll probably be coming back again to say, let's have something, let's talk about something again, and hopefully we'll get that opportunity. Thank you so much. If you are listening to us, and this is your first time of joining the podcast, please endeavor to subscribe on YouTube and also follow us on all our social media platforms, and stay engaged with much more inspiring and educative content like this as we keep on going with the MeetPoint Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us for this 1 hour. We love you and we appreciate. Have a wonderful time. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button before you leave. Bye.